Good morning or good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for joining IIUSA for our Q1 webinar. Today's topic is the EB5 program, Strengthening Our Industry Through Opportunity. And before we get started, I just wanted to run through our regular housekeeping that this webinar is for educational purposes only and is not legal advice. If you have any questions on the topic of this webinar, please consult your own legal counsel, and the information is deemed to be accurate and up to date as of the date of this discussion. Additionally, recording or transcription of this webinar is strictly prohibited. Before we get started with the content, I wanted to thank our sponsor, JTC, for sponsoring our quarterly webinars in 2025. And I'd like to turn it over to Jose Rincon to give you a quick overview of JTC and what they provide for the EB5 industry. Jose?
Thank you so much. Good morning and good afternoon to everyone that's participating in the webinar. Very excited to be joined by an esteemed group of panelists who will be discussing a wide variety of topics today. JTC, real quick, is a services firm based out of the UK, working across different industries, investment industries. Here in the States, we've worked in EB5 since 2010, working with first-time developers in helping them navigate through the compliance and operations and administration of their investments, as well as working with established regional centers to provide value and services in operations and back office support. As you guys obviously know of the news that broke last week about the gold card and the changes to our industry, JTC as a firm will be working closely with IIUSA and a lot of you participants on this webinar on what we need to do as an industry for the continued success of EB5. Whether that is working with Congress to figure out what areas we need to improve, to driving across the messaging of the benefits and the good that our industry is doing for our country and the communities it is impacting.
Great. Thank you, Jose, and thank you, JTC, for your support. We will now move into the meat of our discussion, and I will turn it over to Erin Grau, IIUSA's Executive Director, for introductions and the start of our discussion.
Thank you, Ashley. I appreciate it. My name is Erin Grau, and as Ashley said, I'm the Executive Director of IIUSA. I'd like to ask the panelists to take a very brief moment and introduce themselves as well before we dive into the substance of today's webinar. I'll start with Bill Gresser.
Terrific. Erin, thank you very much, and to everybody else on the panel, thank you for joining us. And to those of you in the audience, it's great to see you virtually. I'm Bill Gresser. I'm the president of IIUSA. I've been in this role for the last 2 years, and I'm very proud of the work we've done. I'm also the president of EB5 New York State. We are a regional center that has done a number of projects throughout New York State and the US, and we continue to actively identify exciting projects and investors for them. So thank you very much, Erin, and I'm looking forward to a great panel.
Thank you, Bill. Dan?
Thanks, Erin. My name's Dan Healy. I am the founder and chief executive of Civitas Capital Group, based in Dallas, Texas. We are a regional center operator and real estate investment manager. We provide primarily debt-oriented investments focused on residential and hospitality projects for the most part, although we sometimes invest in other asset classes as well. I founded the firm about 15 years ago. We've done just about $1 billion of EB5 investing during that time. And I'm proud to serve on the board of IIUSA and look forward to the webinar today.
Thanks, Dan. George?
Thank you, Erin. My name is George McAway. I'm a founder and president of the Reserve Component, a lobbying firm in Washington, D.C., and we represent IIUSA on Capitol Hill and with the administration. So thank you for being here today.
Thank you, George. And finally, John?
John Pratt. I'm a partner at Kirsten Tilly & Pratt. It's a law firm in Coral Gables, Florida. Practice a lot in the EB5 space, do a lot of federal court litigation and other representations in the EB5 space, and a member of the board of directors also of IIUSA.
Thank you, sir. So today's webinar is going to be discussing at its core the new gold card proposal that the president put out last week. But before we do that, before we get to sort of the meat of the order here, I think it's important to level set and describe what IIUSA is and what its goals and priorities are. We have a record number of attendees on this webinar, and it strikes me that perhaps some people don't know exactly what IIUSA is. So let me turn to our president, Bill Gresser, just to give an overview of what IIUSA is and what its priorities are. Bill?
Sure. Thanks, Aaron. And for those of you who aren't familiar with IIUSA, Invest in the USA is the industry's largest trade association. IIUSA has the largest number of regional centers, projects, developers, service providers, attorneys, agents, and others in the industry who are members of our association. Our primary objective as IIUSA is a couple-fold, but it is regarding legislation. It is legislative activities. The EB-5 industry was created by Congress. It was created by statute. So it's critically important that IIUSA as an association and our members throughout the United States are always working to continue to improve the program, to ensure its longevity, to increase the benefits it has, and to increase the number of new U.S. jobs created by the EB-5 program. The other thing we really focus on is education. What are the best practices in the industry? How do we go about doing them? We have conferences in which you can meet with industry experts from around the U.S. from all different fields, whether they're fellow regional centers or operators, whether they're attorneys or agents or whomever. We bring everyone together to share their best practices, and then we make sure that those best practices are implemented. IIUSA has been a representative of this industry, of the EB-5 industry, for many, many years. And in that time frame, you've seen over nearly 1.5 million new U.S. jobs created from over $55 billion of EB-5 capital brought to the U.S. IIUSA fills a needed role in representing everyone in our industry, in our ecosphere, in the needs that they have to continue to be represented well in Congress. And together we can do that. Together we each have individual strengths, but together we build IIUSA to be a strong voice and representative for our industry, for each of you and all of us together. So if you're not a member of IIUSA, I'm sure you're going to enjoy this webinar. And I would encourage you to become a member of IIUSA. You can find information on our website. You can contact Aaron Grau or another member of our team. You can see our publications, our research, our data that's out there. And I would encourage you to join IIUSA, become a member of our team as we move forward to represent you and our industry as a whole. So, Aaron, I hope that's a pretty good explanation.
That is a pretty good explanation. Yes, Bill. Let me ask George. George, as Bill mentioned, one of the cornerstones of IIUSA is our advocacy role. The program, the EB-5 Regional Center program, is a creature of statute. So let me ask you, can you describe our advocacy role and what IIUSA has done in the past and what our plans are going forward?
Sure. Thank you, Aaron. I appreciate this opportunity to be here with everyone. I think, as you look at, as I think we are a creature of Capitol Hill or the administration because of the laws and the regulations that are coming forward. And I think we've seen that over the past number of years, whether it's with the reauthorization and how involved we were with the crafting of that bill to make sure that we had reauthorization going now through 2027. But that's not just one thing that we're working on. I think we are always being very proactive in our approach on Capitol Hill and with the administration, even though we're going through a transition right now, of trying to give almost baseline what EB-5 is and what it does for the country. So the economic development, the billions of dollars that have been brought to the U.S. and the over 1 million jobs that have been created. So that is our goal. While there are a number of pieces of legislation or other things that are out there legislative that we're working on, but part of it is the advocacy portion, which is just going out there and making sure that we're on the Hill, we're talking to folks and explaining them what we're doing for their states and their districts.
Thanks, George. Bill, I know that you're pretty involved with our advocacy. Was there anything that you wanted to add or touch on with regards to what we're doing on the Hill and with the administration?
Yeah, I think just to build on what George has said. So George is modest, right? But we have worked with a number of legislative consultants, advisors, government affairs consultants over the years, from larger firms, smaller firms, and many, many firms. We started working with George and Katie Haslett and their firm several years ago, and the results have been very, very impressive. So we need to stay in front of Congress and the agency. And George has really focused IIUSA's attention on doing that. And one example are the fly-ins that we do. So every quarter, George organizes members of IIUSA, the people on this panel, and many, many others. And I got to thank them very much. Just recently, as of last Tuesday, we were on Capitol Hill. We were in the members of Congress's offices. We met with some members. We met with many staffs to tell them about the EB-5 program, the good it does in our country, and the more good we can do. That's the kind of work that we are doing to be proactive on a number of different things. Our primary focuses, I would say, and there are many, but if I were to just sum up what are our primary legislative objectives, they are not necessarily in this order, but they're for capacity. As I said before, the EB-5 programs created about 1.5 million jobs, but we need more capacity so that we can continue to create more new U.S. jobs. We need the ability to have more visas for investors so that we can remove some of the backlog and that we can have more future investors so that we can continue to grow the industry and also take care of those investors who are in the industry. The second thing we are always working towards is reauthorization, whether that is the program, as Aaron said, will sunset in 2027 and a piece in 2026. And ideally, we would have permanency. And then finally, it's kind of a catch-all, but we're always looking to improve the program. What is it that IIUSA can do? Our lobbying and legislative efforts can do to continue the good work that happened in the Reform and Integrity Act and continue to improve the EB-5 program, whether it's anyway, all number of different areas. So it's those categories. It's increased capacity, permanency or reauthorization, and further improvements to an already good law. So I would say those are our focuses, and really George and his team lead us on the Hill in those advocacy efforts.
And Bill, I'll go a little bit more if that's what you're looking for. So I think even last year and the year before, when we instituted our congressional fly-in program 2 years ago, we've had where members come into DC and we kind of go out, hit the Hill. I'd say probably last year we probably had close to 100 formal meetings on Capitol Hill, and that doesn't include all of the additional meetings that we've had or interactions or communications we've had with congressional staff and members of Congress to make sure that we're continuing that message. So it's not just that one meeting that we're having, it's building that relationship with that office for the long term, because we do know that whether it's something like what just happened with the gold card being announced, or it's our reauthorization that is in 2027, we need to make sure that we are in front of them constantly, just to make sure that they know that we're a resource to them, but we need to make sure that we're going to need their help as well.
Well, I would just add to that a little bit. And I think really IIUSA, one of our real strengths is advocacy. So when bold proposals like the President's Gold Card come about, IIUSA is there, it's on the Hill. And ironically, we happen to have been there last Tuesday. Now, we're going to talk more about it later, but the day that the president made his announcement, that bold announcement with Secretary Lutnick, IIUSA and our members were on Capitol Hill meeting with offices. So we have had a long-term focus on representing the industry on Capitol Hill. We have a real strength in that. We have the fruit of our efforts is in the Reform and Integrity Act. And we continue those efforts today. So I don't want to jump ahead, but Aaron, I think that what we do on Capitol Hill and in the federal agencies is so important, both to what we've done historically, but what we intend to and hope to do going forward now.
Thanks, gentlemen. Dan, let me jump to you real quick for maybe a brief overview of the integrity measures that are in the RIA. And the reason I'm asking at this point in the webinar is because those integrity measures were a big, big part of what IIUSA has advocated for in the past and what we continue to support now. There have been statements that have been made that reflect that the industry or the program is still rife with fraud. That's not the case. Can you speak a little bit to the integrity measures and how it's changed the program?
Yeah, happy to. I'm very happy to, in fact. It was unfortunate that Secretary Lutnick used some of the language that he did, because it really is not reflective at all of the state of the industry today, post Reform and Integrity Act of 2022. Prior to that, it certainly was true that there were some high profile and some lower profile cases of real fraud that had to be dealt with. And both, in terms of the bad actors, specifically, but also at the policy level. And the good news is that the Integrity Act, frankly, has been very successful at doing that, not just a little bit. So the act is about 100 pages of legislative text, and of that, probably 80% is some form of increased accountability or investor protection, or what are generally referred to as the integrity measures. And I'll just give a handful of examples, for this purpose. One that's really important, particularly in light of the announcement from the president this last week, is that the act contains provisions that protect good faith investors, if they are, if they have done their part and made an investment, and the regional center with which they are affiliated with fails. That was something that was missing previously, and now is in the law. And importantly, it also includes grandfathering provisions that are very clear, that if an investor makes an investment under the current rules, under the act, that investment and their immigration process will proceed under those rules, even if the EB-5 program is not renewed or goes away. So very important to keep that in mind when we hear a suggestion that the program might be replaced or altered. That's not going to affect people who are investors today or who become investors under the current rules. Really important. Aside from that, there's a host of operational and bona fides requirements that have become mandatory. People like me that are principals of regional centers have to now provide our fingerprints and other biometric information to the FBI. It's in that regard similar to securities regulation that has been in place for some time. And in some ways, it's more extensive. My firm is both a regional center operator and a registered investment advisor under the Advisors Act. So my fingerprints were already on file with the SECs, but they did not require my 17-year-old daughter to also provide her biometrics, because through me, she has a de minimis indirect interest in a regional center. The USCIS, on the other hand, has taken the position that anyone who has an interest at all of any size in a regional center needs to be in their system. So, my minor children are now in that system. So they're taking this, frankly, a little too far, in my opinion, but better safe than sorry, because the point was they need to know who is operating regional centers and who is, accountable and responsible for what is now, hundreds of millions and billions of dollars that are flowing through this program and, going into the U.S. economy. And, if you want to, so the bar has been raised significantly. And there's a host of additional provisions that I could get into, but I'll stop there.
Thanks, Dan, and thank you, gentlemen. I think that's an incredible level set of what IIUSA is and where we've set our sights. Let me turn now, and John, I'm going to ask you this question. Let's turn out to the meat of the order here. What do we know about the gold card? What don't we know about the gold card? Can you walk us through sort of a legal analysis of where we stand in this regard, and then we'll move on to what it might mean to EB-5.
Correct. I think initially when the whole gold card was announced, there was a lot of fear that because there was, language that will replace it. As Dan and everybody said, EB5 is the law of the land. EB5 provides protection. So what do we know? The little that we know is by just reading the transcripts of the different discussions that have been said when he initially announced it at a cabinet meeting, and what he said at the joint session of Congress the other day, etc. So he wants to call it the gold card. So it presumably there's going to be this gold card status, which is similar to a green card, but he said that it would be a green card plus. So this gold card status would be an investment of $5 million. It doesn't have to be in job creation. It could go to the Treasury directly. So it seems that, by the questions and answers and what the administration has pronounced, it's not an investment at risk. It's a donation or gold card investment into the Treasury. So obviously there's no return. It's a payment to the U.S. Treasury. You will get a gold card, which would give you the opportunity or the similar benefits as a green card. One benefit that apparently they're contemplating is that you will only be taxed on U.S. based income once you have this gold card status, not on worldwide income under the current laws right now. Once you have become a green card holder, so, a lot of times you're subject to worldwide income. So they said that this gold card status will not have that. They have not announced if there's any residency requirements for the gold card status. Under the green card status, you have to be a permanent resident in the United States. You have to reside here. There's no guidelines or what they're going to require on the gold card status. The other thing, as it relates to taxation, though, is you're also taxed currently worldwide if you become a U.S. citizen. There's some individuals that become U.S. citizens directly. They derive it, or yourself in the military. It's unclear whether this tax benefit would only accrue if you are in gold card status, and what happens if you then become a citizen. Again, there's only been a few pronouncements. It's supposed to be rolling out in the next couple of weeks. And again, what's unknown is, well, how are they going to implement this? Because if it's a new visa category, it would require an act of Congress. The other thing that you can glean from or try to read is that what the president said and the administration said is that they could be 200,000 or maybe 1 million gold card applicants. It seems that the gold card will be outside of the normal, employment-based scheme where there's quotas. As we know, the EB5 has a quota of 10,000. Apparently, the gold card could be unlimited, 200,000 or 1 million. It seems that there wasn't a discussion, but I would presume that the gold card would also give benefits to derivatives. So derivatives are not counted because the investor could get it. But there's a lot of unknowns. But there's a lot of discussions of what the proper posture is that IIUSA or others could take. The fact is, the administration has taken steps that are outside of the norm or bold or however the term that you want to do it in all immigration facets that I practice in immigration, and this one is obviously, I think, important to highlight. It recognizes that investment is a critical component of the immigration system. It recognizes that attracting investment and attracting investors and high net worth individuals is a critical beneficial component of the immigration system in the United States. And again, I think it recognizes that bringing more capital is beneficial. And as we go forward, working with the administration, because it is the administration in power, that would be critical going forward. And I do believe that this gold card proponent or project can coexist and be aligned with EB5. It serves different audiences, it serves different interests, and it provides different interests. Where we would not be the only country that has a gold type visa. Thailand, I believe, has one. I think Portugal still has it. And it would be the most expensive one in the world, I believe. But again, I think that it would and can certainly coexist with EB5 and the benefits that EB5 provide to a different subset of individuals, and that they can the two programs can certainly coexist forward. How do they implement it? To me, it would be an act of Congress. I don't think he could do it by executive order. but we would have to see what the administration is attempting to do.
Thanks, John. I'm not sure if the other panelists want to weigh in there as well. One question I'd like to double down on, just because we did receive it prior to the webinar beginning, is whether or not the Gold Card program will replace the EB-5 program. I don't think that it will, but Bill, did you have something that you wanted to add or want to give sort of some more color to John's answer with regards to that specifically?
Yeah, I mean, the way I look at it, Aaron, is that, you know, there's been talk both ways. There's been talk that maybe it would be designed a gold card to replace the EB-5 program. Alternatively, I've heard talk that it would really be a complement to, that EB-5 would be a complement to the president's vision. So I really do firmly believe that it's a complement. And I think that John really spelled out a number of reasons why I see it as a complement. So the president's vision is bold. And as John said, there are a number of countries in the world that have golden visa or gold visa programs. The US doesn't, we've never had one, but this one that the president is espousing would be designed to pay down, you know, the deficit. It would be to the US Treasury, designed to be allocated to the deficit. But it's also intended to create economic development. The idea of wealthy individuals, ultra wealthy individuals coming to the United States. And by, you know, you assume and reasonably so that they're going to bring companies, create jobs, do things here in the US. There's no requirement that they do that, but that's the assumption that they would. You know, and I see this as a complement to EB-5 because, first off, the EB-5 program has been around for 35 years. We have a very deep tradition of doing things that would be complementary to the Gold Card program. So, for example, the EB-5 program, as Dan said, we've already been vetting investors, working with USCIS to ensure that these investors who come in through the EB-5 program, they have had their backgrounds vetted, their history vetted, their source of funds vetted, their path of funds, all the things that are, you would assume would be necessary for any immigration by investment program. We already have this. As such, you know, it's a natural flow from what we already do, what we've been doing for 35 years, and flowing that in. But in addition to that, I mean, I really think it's a complement because the Gold Card is designed to focus on, you know, funds to the Treasury. The EB-5 program has been and always will be focused on creating new U.S. jobs. Creating new U.S. jobs by attracting foreign capital to go into U.S. job-creating businesses. That's what we've done. The Gold Card is fast. You know, you make your donation, I'll say, to the U.S. Treasury, and you move quickly to this Gold Card visa. The EB-5 program, it's lengthy. These are, you know, and they're serving different markets. The Gold Card is for the ultra wealthy. The EB-5 program is for people who are wealthy enough to make an at-risk investment. And then there's the requirements of residency and tax payments. So to John's point, you know, it's unclear about residency requirements for the Gold Card, but it's very clear that under the EB-5 program, there are residency requirements with a green card, and the tax implications are significant. You know, it seems as though with the Gold Card, it'll be the individual, he or she would just pay taxes on their US sourced income. While with the EB-5 program, individual investors are paying US tax on their worldwide income, both US sourced and worldwide sourced income. So, you know, the EB-5 program is a great complement. It's serving the same purpose of immigration by investment. It's benefiting the United States, but it's benefiting different components necessarily directly. With the Gold Card, it's to the Treasury. With the EB-5 program, it's an investment. It's an investment to create new U.S. jobs. Those jobs must be proven to be actually created. The investor, he or she, must pay income tax on their worldwide income. And if they do all the things and they follow all the rules, then the investor and his or her family can obtain a U.S. green card. So there are many similarities, and yet there are distinct differences, serving different, I'll say, constituents, if you will, of individual immigrant investors who might apply. But at the end of the day, it's immigration by investment, and both of them are tremendous benefits to the United States with the benefits that they provide from the immigrants and from their investment. So I really see these as tremendously complementary, Aaron.
I agree with you. Thanks for laying that out. Let me ask one other question because it's important. I'll ask you, Dan. What is the status of the EB5 program right now? I mean, is it business as usual? I mean, after the announcement of the gold card, where does EB5 stand right now?
Yeah, the short answer is that nothing has changed, yet. It's possible that it will, but as of now, and until there is either legislation or some sort of formal policy action that is taken, the EB5 program, as John mentioned, is the law of the land. And I can tell you that in the last week, we've had a 956F project approval come through. We've had I-526E approvals come through. I mean, the activity continues. Just to add to something that Bill was just saying, the other thing that I would point out here, and John touched on this as well, is that I think in my opinion, the gold card announcement is the biggest policy opportunity that the EB5 program has ever seen. John mentioned that in the initial announcement from the Oval Office, President Trump said we might have 1 million people participate in the gold card program, or even 10 million. So, like many of the president's, initiatives that he chooses to pursue, bold is an understatement. That is a lot of people. And he's hopeful that in doing so, he will generate not a little bit, but a massive amount of revenue for the Treasury, which is great. And as Bill pointed out, is totally consistent with everything that the EB5 program stands for and is designed to accomplish. But what's new is the notion that investment immigration, in terms of its use and sort of support within U.S. policymaking community, is clearly has the support of the president, and not at a low level, at a major level. The annual allocation of 10,000 visas has been in the EB5 program has been the law since, I believe, 1990 or 92, something like that. And it hasn't changed. And as many of the folks on this webinar, I'm sure, are very well aware, derivative applicants, the spouses and children of each primary investor that is applying, each of those are counted against that annual cap. Well, if suddenly it's in the realm of possibility for 1 million people to come through the gold card program, then I cannot imagine, that is a truck-sized, opening to drive through to explain to Team Trump, how getting to some significantly higher capacity within the EB5 program is not only consistent with the gold card program, but can actually, it's a both and. I mean, it can help them directly achieve, their policy objectives. So I'm pretty excited about that. Of course, there's work to do, but to answer your question, right now, it's business as usual, and it's going to be business as usual for the coming months while, whatever's going to happen with the gold card gets worked out.
And let me expand on that a little bit if I can, Aaron, because I think it's very important what Dan just said, which is it's a great opportunity to try to explain to the administration why derivatives should not be counted in the EB5 space, even if we don't get any numbers. I mean, I've been lobbying in Congress on other immigration issues for more than a decade on behalf of the American Immigration Lawyers Association. The one thing you always heard is there will not be any increase on overall immigration numbers because all the other categories are capped. The other employment-based categories are capped. They're all capped. I think obviously EB5 is different than the other employment-based categories because it reduces the capital investment and the job creation benefits of EB5 by reducing it to the derivatives. It's a great opportunity to educate the administration on that. But what is different is obviously the administration is advocating for 200,000 or 1 million. That's not what we've heard in the last decades. I mean, it seems obviously this recognition that capital investments are good for the country, and you know, again, there's different views of people with regarding this administration. The fact is, they proposed it. The fact is, it's probably going to go forward, and the fact is that it could coexist with EB5 because it serves different purposes and different investors with different interests. And IUSA is positioned in order to advance the interest of EB5 and you know, not only on reauthorization, permanent, but also maybe hopefully derivatives is now a real play in accomplishing that.
Before I turn to what I believe is IIUSA's unique position in the field with regards to the gold card and how it impacts EB5, let me just pause for a moment. George, let me circle back to you with regards to anything that we've discussed, your perspective from Capitol Hill and what we'll be doing. And maybe you can touch a little bit on some of the feedback we're already getting from Capitol Hill. You and I were on a phone call yesterday with a Senate office who all of a sudden is seeing EB5 as a solution to a problem. We don't need to name names, that's probably premature, but do you want to speak to any of that and what we're seeing off the Hill?
No, I think that's what we're seeing, though. It's, you know, we've talked about earlier in this call about how we're the ones that are being proactive in taking EB5 to Congress and the administration. Well, it's kind of turning around on us a little bit, which is a good thing. It's actually now people are talking about EB5 and coming to us and saying, okay, what are your thoughts? What could we be doing? How do we get this? How do we make sure that president wants the gold card? How can we do that? But then also, how can we make sure that the EB5 program maintains or is more robust, and making sure that we're driving the economic investment, those dollars into the districts and into the states. The job creation in general for members of Congress, Senate, or the House is a big deal. They want to make sure that jobs are coming to their state. So if this is a driver of that, they want to make sure that that's maintained. And so we've had that conversation. As we talked also, we were on the Hill the day that the president announced in the Oval Office that he wanted to do something with the gold card. Since then, you know, we're also going back now too. We've had some time to digest the gold card. We've talked about our thoughts on EB5, you know, working with the gold card, or, you know, in alignment with the gold card to maintain that. So we're already going back to the Hill again. Aaron will be in town tomorrow. We already have a number of meetings that are set up, but that's the kind of energy we're looking for. So there is this positive aspect. Now we're talking about foreign direct investment, the immigrant investor program, as being something that now people want to get a hold of, and they want to be a part of whatever the next step is. So that's where we're seeing this positive activity that came from the announcement of the gold card.
It's actually pretty exciting. Unexpected turn of events that is benefiting the conversation around EB5 that we never really expected. So let me turn now, and Bill, I'm going to ask you.
Can I just
Oh, I'm
jump
sorry.
in for
Go
1
ahead,
second?
please.
Yeah. So, I mean, I have a similar story to George's that I had told him, and that the day after the president announced his vision for a gold card, a Democratic member of Congress called me and he said, "This is a really interesting idea. I can really see a tremendous synergy here between the gold card and the EB5 program." And he's long supported the EB5 program. So I would just say, you know, to echo what George has said and what you were saying, Aaron, is we're seeing activity on the Hill that is saying, we see this, we see the EB5 program, we recognize the strength, we've supported it for years, and we see the synergy between the two. So, I mean, I'm really excited by the reaction that we're getting and it's getting.
Well, that's what I was going to ask you about, actually.
sorry.
And, you know, it seems to me that in reading the press and in seeing the other webinars and white papers that are coming out, that IIUSA might be in a unique position here as being very excited about the opportunities that the president's gold card proposal is presenting to us. I don't know that that's definitively the case, but we are definitely bullish on this. And I didn't know if you wanted to speak to that any further, or perhaps some of the other panelists wanted to weigh in on the opportunities that we're seeing here.
I certainly would.
Sure, please.
I completely agree. I mean, this is not a time to be afraid. You know, this is a time to be proud of what we have done as an industry, and highlight it. You know, the president, you know, regardless of what you think of his politics, what's very clear is that his objective is to usher in a golden age, you know, an economic golden age. whether you agree with how he's going about doing that is debatable, but I think I certainly believe that EB5 has played a material role in driving real capital investment, particularly to areas of the country that need it, and at particularly vulnerable times after the 2008 and 9 crisis, for example, which is when I started Civitas Capital. At that time there was no the capital market for real estate development was essentially illiquid, had frozen. And it remained very thin until probably 2012, 13. And EB5, that was, when EB5 sort of had its first kind of, significant expansion in activity, as I and others, came into the market and realized that it was a really powerful tool. And the only reason that we're not doing tens of billions of dollars of EB5 investments is because there is a cap. There's an annual cap on capacity, effectively. I think that President Trump and his team are clearly comfortable, willing to use executive power to its maximum extent to achieve their political objectives, their policy objectives. And if they decide to do that with respect to EB5, there's a lot they can do. Some things will require an act of Congress. And as you were just pointing out, now that the president has completely reframed the debate, the discussion around investment immigration and, by implication, actually directly by EB5 specifically, we're now getting questions from the U.S. Senate and from policymakers who are saying, hey, wait a minute, maybe there's something here we hadn't thought about. Maybe this could be a solution for another issue that's really pressing in my district. And that is the conversation that we want to be having, to your point a moment ago, Aaron. So I think it's a huge opportunity, one that we really have to get right.
It is amazing
If
how.
I may, Aaron, just
Okay.
slightly, I mean, the fact of the matter is the administration proposed a gold card, and President Trump mentioned it. It wasn't expected, etc. That's a fact. We got to deal with the facts of the realities that exist. And IIUSA is the leader in advising the interests of EB5. Some people may think that a different approach could be taken, but the fact is that it seems that the administration will be moving forward with the gold card. And if you look at what the gold card does, it doesn't invalidate, eliminate, or in any way restrict what EB5 can do, will do, and can continue doing. That's a fact. And not dealing with the facts of what the current administration is. Some people may wish that there was a different administration, but this is the administration that we have. Some people may wish that we had a different Congress, but this is the Congress that we have. And understanding those realities and understanding that the proposal that is put forth or that we know at this point can definitely coexist with EB5 is a reality, and not recognizing that reality. Because I hear from some colleagues that, well, you have to take this other approach, but not understanding the realities of the administration, Congress, the makeup of Congress is, I think, naive. And I believe, and I strongly, I'm proud of what USA is doing, because it's advancing the interests of EB5 and what other groups are at the Hill speaking on behalf of of EB5 and advancing the interests of EB5 and reauthorization and derivatives and all the issues that help not only the entire industry, but investors that are already invested and prospective investors, because not everybody can just pay $5 million and not have it returned, just a donation of $5 million. I mean, I have hybrid investors that could do that. They may want to do an EB5 for a son, but they may want to take advantage of the gold card if they don't have to pay worldwide taxation and come every once in a while to see their son. So there's a whole host of different things that could help, and understanding that reality to me is a fact. I mean, it's just you have to accept it.
It is exciting
If I
to
can
see.
add one part.
Yeah,
so
please,
thank you.
George, go ahead.
So I think there are two different things we're talking about too. So we're saying we're addressing two challenges. That's how we're seeing this. So the Immigrant Investor Program addresses two different challenges. The president, the administration has a challenge with the deficit. That's where the gold card comes in. What we're getting from the outreach from members of Congress now is saying, I have a challenge because I want to make sure that there's economic development and there are jobs being created in my district or my state. Those are two separate goals, but that's why they can work together. The Congress can help the administration with what they're trying to achieve. And then the administration will also be able to help facilitate more EB5 investment and achieve their goals as well. So that's why, as Dan, Aaron, Bill, and John have all said, this is an opportunity for us. That's why we can actually kind of work together with the administration and Congress to actually getting something where we're both benefiting.
And I think that it's important. I mean, I 110% agree with what everybody has said so far, but I think it's really important for people listening to this webinar to recognize we're not just coming to the table. IIUSA has been working for years with members of Congress and their offices. We have been garnering support for this program since the program started, since IIUSA started, which was many, many years ago. When we were on Capitol Hill a week and 2 days ago, on last Tuesday, we met with, George, 20 offices?
24, 25.
24 offices. This program has been widely popular with offices on both the right and the left, from the moderate to the extreme, I'll say nicely, in both left and right. Why? Because we create jobs. Jobs are a key to those legislative districts, to where those members come from, to their states. To George's point, it's a synergy here. You know, the administration has an objective. Each of those members in their districts do. And the EB5 program has been widely and bipartisan supported in Congress for as long as I can remember. It's always been a tool that's been used from one side or another. But now we have an opportunity to say, look, we've shown you the benefits. We've shown you the strength. We've shown you jobs created. We take a flyer to each office and it says, here's how many jobs were created in your district. It's very, very real, the good that we have done, the jobs we have created. The gold card is a tremendous opportunity for us to leverage that strength that we have built over years, together with supporting the president's mission of generating new capital for the United States. So I'm really excited. I just think it's a tremendous opportunity, and opportunities don't come around very often.
I agree, Bill. It's phenomenal to see so many offices that congressional offices that otherwise didn't know about EB5, waking up to EB5 and the potential that it has. So before I turn to each of you, if you have any final comments, before I forget to do so, let me thank JTC once more for their sponsorship of our webinar series this year. It's very appreciated, and it obviously goes to supporting some very important conversations. So thank you to JTC. And now let me just go down the list as I see it on my screen for some final comments with regards to everything that we've discussed. IIUSA, the status of the EB5 program, how this gold card is an opportunity for EB5. Dan, let me start with you.
Sure. You know, one thing that occurred to me that I don't know that we said explicitly so far is that even in the very brief period from late last Tuesday, when the president made his initial announcement of the gold card idea, and even by the next day, or in the next 72 hours after that, a lot of the benefits that of EB5, and the fact that it very clearly can be complementary to the gold card idea. It wasn't just obvious to the people on this webinar. It wasn't just something that IIUSA had to just point out to people. We are very well aware that a lot of the developers, project sponsors, other users of EB5 capital, the people who are directly creating the jobs, that this program, uses immigrant investor capital to create, They also have lines into the administration, and they were not shy about using them. And so, I want to note that it was not coincidental that the first reference to EB5 on Tuesday was pretty negative. The second reference on Wednesday was far less so. If you compare those two, and over the next few days, as we actually made direct contact with various members of the administration, the feedback has been, hey, we get it. We're willing to listen. There's a play here. So, I in my company, I'm known as the optimist, and my partner Jonathan is Dr. No. He says no to everything and thinks everyone is full of it until proven otherwise. So, I wanted to note that it's not just me or Bill or the folks on this webinar who think, hey, there can be a real opportunity here. That message is already getting through to Team Trump, and like I said, I'm hopeful and pretty optimistic that this is gonna turn out to be an important moment.
Thanks, Dan. Bill, a minute or two.
Yeah.
Any final thoughts?
I think I'll be quick. I pretty much said my piece, but on behalf of IIUSA, I really want to thank everybody for participating and listening in on this webinar. But importantly, IIUSA's strength is our members. It's you who are listening today. The members is what makes us strong. It's members in all the different districts and the projects that you are doing and the clients that you as an attorney are representing, or JTC, or the banks are representing in your different districts. That's really our strength. It isn't us as, it necessarily is an organization. It's the organization made up of people and companies and banks and service providers and regional centers like you. So it's really, really important that you join IIUSA. Join in our efforts to further the industry, to make it stronger, to make it bigger, to make it healthier. And we really encourage you to not only join IIUSA, but share in your successes. Tell us, tell George, tell Aaron about the good work you've done in your district so that we can tell your member of Congress, so that your members of Congress know how important you and the EB5 program is to them, to the jobs created, to the economic development. So I've got to strongly encourage you. Strength is in numbers, and together we're a big number and we have a lot of strength. But for those of you who aren't members, please join us, make us stronger, and tell us about all the good you've done. So Aaron, that's my last pitch, and thank you again for this webinar. I think it's been great.
Thank you, Bill. George, quickly, any last thoughts?
Yeah, I just a little tag on a little bit what Bill's saying too about broadening the membership. I would say the question should be is why are you not a member of IIUSA? Why wouldn't you want to come to the Capitol Hill with us as with your colleagues and be on the Hill and really talk about those projects? I think I get a lot of enjoyment and satisfaction out of when we put those packets together and we start looking around the country and we see these great projects that the IIUSA members are doing to drive investment, to create jobs. I think anybody would want to showcase that to their members of Congress, whether in the House or the Senate. So that's what gives us the strength when we're on the Hill, because they there is a connection back to the district. So I would say really consider that and be a part of this, be a part of what's happening now with EB5 and how it will be a stronger program at the end of the day.
Thanks, George. John, how's the gold card going to impact EB5? You have the final word, sir. Bring us home.
Yeah, again, I think, and I'll just start with, obviously, IIUSA has an opportunity to educate members of Congress and administration about all the goods and the strengthening that the RA had about bipartisan legislation in EB5. There's very few legislation I've seen in 20 years practicing immigration law. But again, it's working with the administration in order to ensure that the gold card can coexist and will coexist with EB5, since it will serve two different investors with two different interests, and they can complement each other and coexist with each other. And I sincerely believe that IIUSA is the leader in advocating for the interest of EB5 and ultimately every investor that ends up investing in EB5. So not only by safeguarding EB5, but that also protects the investors at the end of the day. And they will coexist and they can coexist, and it's our job to ensure that they do coexist.
Thank you, John. Thank you, gentlemen, for a good conversation, for a very upbeat perspective. I'll thank JTC one more time. Thank you very much. And I'll turn it back over to you, Ashley.
Thank you, Aaron. Sorry, I could not get my computer to cooperate there for a second. But thank you to our panelists for this very helpful and candid conversation. And thank you, everyone, for joining us today. And of course, to JTC for your support of our webinar series. Just to echo what everyone else was saying, if you are not a member and you're interested in joining IIUSA, please reach out to anyone at the staff. You can email info@iiusa.org for more information. And we thank you for your time, and we look forward to our next webinar. Thank you.